What defines the strongest man in history? And they'll all say the deadlift. Who can pick up the most weight from the floor to his hips? And that man's me. My beats per minute was over 200. Blood pressure was unreadable, and I went blind in the middle of my eye. I was able to create a scenario in my head. I wasn't lifting 500 kilo off the floor. I was lifting a car off of my kids. And that's the only way I was able to do that lift. Out of 7 billion people, you are the strongest. You are the alpha, you're the one. I was just absolutely obsessed. Literally wasn't seeing my wife and kids at all. My nan, who I was very, very close to, I spent a hell of a lot of time with, was diagnosed with cancer. And I made the promise to my nan on a deathbed that I would win the world's strongest man one day. I love you, Nan. I love you. I did it. Yes! Yes! If I had never achieved it, then I'm letting her down. That's one of the main things that kept me going. You know, I've turned my life around, and as you say, you know, I've been there, done it, and I've become the world's strongest man. 18 years ago, I was locked in my room thinking about and trying to kill myself. With the power of belief, achieved amazing things and proved to millions and millions of people that no matter where you come from, what you do, hard work and dedication can get you places.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
Boom! Think about it. 500 kilogram deadlift. That's 1,100 pounds. And that is the world record held by Eddie Hall, who's our guest today. Pretty incredible the feat he accomplished. Even more incredible, he beat his previous record of 463 kilos. And up to now, 3 years later, no one's come close to beating it. And that's the incredible thing about Eddie, but he didn't stop there. He decided he wanted to become the world's strongest man, the top strongman competition. And he did it because he promised his grandmother on her deathbed that he would pursue this goal and finally accomplished it. And look, Eddie is no stranger to depression. When he was 13 years old, he got thrown out of school and he spent 18 months in his bedroom without ever leaving, contemplated suicide, but he came back for that and worked 1 year solid to train and win the world's strongest man in 2017. Eddie is an incredible guy, wasn't afraid to get emotional in this conversation. He's the world's strongest man and the world's most emotional man at the same time, and we need more guys like this to talk about depression, to talk about goal setting and accomplishment and physicality, and I was just so happy to sit down with Eddie. So sit back and enjoy the world's strongest man. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Eddie Hall, the athlete, strongman, and actor better known as The Beast. In 2016, you set the deadlift world record at an incredible 500 kilograms. That's over 1,100 pounds, in what you called, quote, the most incredible lift in human history and one of the most dangerous things I've ever done. 1 year later, in 2017, you won the world's strongest man competition, having tried for 6 years and finally accomplishing a lifelong dream. Today, you spend your time recording television projects, YouTube shows, promoting strongman and mental health awareness, and you're filming a new documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Eddie, welcome to London Real.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here. First of all, what's it like being in London versus Stoke-on-Trent, and for people around the world that don't know the difference between the two cities, what's it like?
Stoke-on-Trent's it's a nice place. It's got its lovely areas, but it's also got its bad areas. It's a good place to grow up, to be honest. It's very central to the country. You want 2 hours, you are anywhere in the UK pretty much, and then you compare it to London, that's just all cogged up and takes you an hour to drive a mile. I find London quite stressful. I really do.
What's stressful about it?
The traffic, the getting around, the people. There's too many people here. For someone like me, I can't walk down the street without being noticed. So I find it quite hard to get around in London. So
people stop you.
Yes.
Do they know who you are, or just when they see you, they know you're somebody?
No, they know who I am, and I can't use the tube. For that reason, so I have to use sort of private transportation. So I have to use taxis, and even if it's like a 12-mile journey across London, take you 10 minutes on the tube, I have to go in a car because I just can't.
You'll get swarmed on the tube.
I can't risk it.
Okay, isn't that crazy? I had Ken Livingstone, the former mayor of London. He can take the tube, but you can't.
No, I literally can't. Literally cannot. Too stressful.
Would you compare Stoke-on-Trent, like in America? What's the equivalent? Is it kind of like the Midwest where you have like these kind of values, and is it slower, and is it more about like who you are and less like bi-coastal, or is that not the best example?
So where would I compare it to?
Yeah, like in America, is it kind of like?
Geez, that's a tough one. I've been a lot of places in America. I would say it's got a very sort of Virginia feel about it, probably of all the places. Just quite relaxed, quite spaced out. Okay. People are nice. Okay. Yeah.
All right, but you're traveling like a madman now. You're all over the world.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, geez.
And you told me earlier, of the last 180 days, you spent how many in the States?
I've spent just over 100. So out of the last 180, I've spent just over 160 in the States. So yeah, it's been pretty tough. And obviously that's a lot of traveling, a lot of hotels. I'm a bit fed up of it now, to be honest. I've had enough.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, I want to hear more about what you're doing with television and the movies, because it's pretty exciting stuff. I think, Eddie, we're going to have to start with the deadlift. And I know you've probably told this story a few times, but people right now watching this have probably already seen a few clips of that from the beginning of the trailer here and watching that moment. And I was, it was captured on video, which is amazing, with close-ups and slow-mo. And I had this crazy thought, and tell me if I'm way off here, but you know how back in the day they sent a space satellite way out into outer space, and they put like a record on there, right. And the record had like opera and like recordings and like all these things that defined the human race. Right. And I was just thinking, like, do you think they should put a snippet of you in the deadlift on there? Because this is, this is human accomplishment. This is a human being doing something that, as you've said before, 7 billion people, you're the only one that's done it. This is accomplishing, overcoming, pain, lifelong of like depression, being told I wasn't able to do this. I mean, it's a moment, right? You ever think that should go out in space for the aliens to see first?
Possibly. I'm not sure if the aliens would sort of relate to what we lift on the planet. Maybe, I don't know. But it sure was a magical moment within the strength industry. There's been hundreds of thousands of world records set within the strength industry. But when I came along and said I was going to pull half a ton off the floor, the reaction was very negative. No one believed it could be done. And when you think about it, it was such a ridiculous statement back in 2015 when I said I was going to pull a half ton off the floor. And even the promoters, just, I said to them after a strongman show, I said, I want to pull half a ton off the floor, but obviously I want to get paid for it. It's like, how much do you want to put forward if I were to pull half a ton? And these are seasoned promoters,
right.
They've been in the game years and years.
Who know what Hollywood, who know how to promote.
Who know how to promote, who know what's capable. And they just looked at each other and were like, yeah, how much do you want? It was just seen as the impossible. I put it on Facebook and Instagram, and it was all negative. It was like, it can't be done, impossible. Just shut up, you're an idiot. You're just talking shit, you're just selling tickets. And
this was part of your game plan, because this is how you motivate yourself.
It is, isn't it? It is, yeah, in a way. I like to put things out there are impossible, that are extreme and would, for 99.999% of the planet, would think, no way, that's just not doable. And then I love to say that, get the reaction, and then be like, right, I'm going to do it now. And it's that negativity that really does fuel my fire. It's literally throwing coal onto my fire to train harder, to dedicate my life to things and go out and get them, like I did with winning the world's strongest man. The half-ton deadlift was exactly the same. Just the reaction was just all negative.
And you can feed off negativity, because a lot of people say today, ignore the haters, stay positive. You've seen all the unicorns and the rainbow memes and things like that, but not for you. You like the negativity and the naysayers.
I do. Well, I did. I do enjoy the sort of negative comments. I mean, when I was a very young sort of athlete, you're talking, well, my very first contest, I was 19 years of age, and I did my first strongman show. And I think Facebook was just starting up around then. You've been around a couple of years, maybe. I can't quite remember. And did my first contest. I remember I came back from that, and I said to everybody, my mum, my dad, my brothers, put it on Facebook, told my friends, I'm going to win the world's strongest man one day, watch this space. And I said that when I was 19 years old, my very first strongman contest. And from day one, I was tarnished with this brush of being this arrogant, overconfident, young kid who's got a chip on his shoulder and an attitude problem. But I always delivered. I delivered on everything I said. And then the week before, the week before UK Strongest Man, my very first sort of big win, again, I put a statement out on social media. I can't wait for next week when I get handed that trophy. And the amount of attack I got was just ridiculous. And I went and won it. Well, and then, the half-ton deadlift, I think, was the most hate I'd got. It was sort of ridiculous, but through that process, I'd set world records in the deadlift already. I'd done British records in log press and whatever else. And then, I got to the world's strongest man. And even when I'm at the world's strongest man, I'm getting all this negativity. Oh, he'll never win it. He'll never do that. But the deadlift, it was surreal. The amount of hate and negativity was just out of this world. I couldn't describe. I wish I could go back and show you like all the comments that followed all these posts and statements. But
that would hurt a lot of people. They would be thinking about that stuff when they're on stage and they have to get to the business, but not for you. You use it as fuel. And then the day of, you went somewhere else.
I do. So do you want me to talk over sort of the 500, how it happened and how it all came about?
I would love to hear it.
Yeah, okay. So back in 2015, I pulled a world record. So I pulled a world record deadlift in 2015. It was 463 kilos. So I owned the world record. And then I went to the promoters after the show and I said, I want to pull 500 kilo.
Is this the one you did in front of Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No,
this
is a few months later.
A few months later. Okay,
yeah.
Right. But that had happened a couple kilos less within.
Yeah, 1 kilo less.
1 kilo less
so
in front of Arnold.
462 in front of Arnie.
Okay, and there's some great footage in your documentary movie where Arnold's right there.
Oh yeah.
And him yelling helped. You think?
It did. It did. Okay. Well, the Arnold story was pretty good. I competed in the Arnold Classic Ohio in 2015. This is my very first big international show since I became a pro strongman. And I flew out to Ohio. I did a whole week of competing, really brutally heavy contest, the heaviest contest on the planet. And I came sixth out of, at the top 10 in the world. And I was very down, very distraught and, very upset with myself. I just not long quit my job and sold my security business to sort of follow this journey of becoming, the strongest man in the world. And I'd let myself down. And I'm packing my suitcases, getting ready to go home from Ohio. And then one of the promoters rings me up and sort of says, how would you feel about coming to Arnold Classic Melbourne in Australia, and redeeming yourself? So I'm, okay, well, when is it? Well, it's this weekend. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, okay. So I packed my bags and get my plane ticket off to Australia I go. It was, all in all, it was about a 40-hour journey to get from Ohio to Melbourne. And I get there and I'm having my evening meal the day before the contest, and then the promoter rings me up again. We've got Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to the Strongman Arena at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. We want to do something special. So I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, kind of thinking, you could pull a world record deadlift. And I'm like, oh, well, Jesus Christ. But then I remembered 6 months earlier, I'd pulled a world record deadlift and dropped it and got disallowed the lift. So I thought, hell, I'm going to do it. So I signed up for it. 11 a.m. the next morning, go for all the warm-up lifts, and there's 462 kilos on the bar. Everyone's waiting around. Arnold's a no-show. So, you know, I say to the promoters and the referees, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do it now. Arnold or no Arnold, it's gonna happen within this next 5 minutes, or else I'm not gonna pull it. So I get strapped onto the bar, start rocking this bar back and forth, and lean back, lean forward, start pulling this bar up, and then I just see this purple pair of loafers just appear on my right hand side, and the whole crowd atmosphere just changes, it erupts. Anyway, I lock this deadlift out, and the referee gives me the down signal. I'll throw it down, and I just throw my straps off, celebrate with the crowd. Arnold was right there. He went to give me a high five, and I completely ignored him because I was too big time. Only kidding. So I'm just celebrating with the crowd, going off my nuts, and then I just sort of zone in. Arnold's right there, and we sort of walk over, and 3 of my life goals at this point in time were, number 1, to win the world's strongest man, number 2, hold the world record deadlift, and number 3, meet, shake hands, and make friends with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I just killed 2 birds with 1 stone. And once I did the lift and realized Arnold was there, I went back over, we did the old Predator handshake, and it's like, Eddie, you monster, it was amazing, oh my God, you're so great. He was it was just a proper, unreal sort of life moment to do a world record deadlift and have Arnold there to sort of spur me on and be there for that moment.
Why Arnold Schwarzenegger? Why was he so important to you?
He's always been my childhood hero. I think my earliest memory I can ever remember is being 5 years old, watching the Terminator 2. And the memory is that I was sitting in my living room watching TV, and Arnold Schwarzenegger walks into a bar butt naked, kicks the shit out of about 20 outlaws, and then walks out with a new set of levers and rides off on a motorbike. And to me, that imprinted on me for the rest of my life. I wanted to be that action hero. I wanted to be the guy with the muscles and who was the movie star. And from that day forth, I just saw Arnold as an absolute hero inspiration. And, you know, I really followed his life story, his career, and his sort of struggle that he went through to come up through Austria, and, you know, going through the army and then going to America and breaking into Hollywood, and all the struggles and all the business and everything that he did to get there. It's an amazing story, and it inspired me throughout my whole sort of childhood. From 5 years on, it inspired me. And
the way that you probably mess with people's heads, and that
Yes.
you go Hollywood a little bit too.
Yeah, you have to, you know, and I think that there's a lot of, I mean, back in the day, there's no denying it. You know, you look at Arnold on his early documentaries, on his early sort of tapes, he was very, very arrogant. And you always relate successful people, very successful people, especially the Hollywood sort of guys, they tend to be quite narcissistic. You know, they think a lot of themselves. But I think that's a very good trait to have, as long as you know it, you understand it, and you can control it. And I think Arnold was that guy. He was the guy that thought, you know, I'm better than everybody else. And he would say it, and he would be so confident, and it would get in the heads of the other athletes, and they would deflate on stage. And I took a lot of that from Arnie and put it into the strongman. And there's one thing I learned from Arnold is there's a big difference between arrogance and confidence. So arrogance is thinking you're the better than everybody else. But then confidence is knowing that you're better than everybody else. But in order to be that confident guy, you've got to be arrogant. You've got to believe it before you become it. And that's what Arnold did. He believed it before it happened. And he was the master of that. He was the master of foreseeing his future. So that's one of the main things I learned from Arnie is almost to trick yourself. You know, you've got to believe yourself that you're going to be that big movie Holly star. You've got to believe that you're going to be the world's strongest man before you get there.
Can anyone do that, you think?
Well, I did it.
You did it.
I did it.
You did it consciously, and then it became unconscious.
It became a reality. Yeah, it became a reality.
It became real.
I believed it. You know, 19 years of age, I said I was going to win the world's strongest man. And at the time, you know, I'm a 19 stone kid. just started in strongman, and I'm out there, and you can look back on my social media, I got absolutely slated for it. I was that arrogant kid that everyone hated, coming up through the ranks, but I delivered. I believed it that much, I made it happen. And that's what I learned from Arnold, is to be that guy, to be that dreamer, to kid yourself until that dream becomes a reality.
Right. So you hit the deadlift, which was 460 what?
462.
62 in Melbourne.
Yes.
You had beat your previous record of 61?
No, well,
No.
I mean, even though I pulled 461, because I dropped it, I got disallowed the lift.
Right.
And that's what made me sort of go on and do this deadlift in front of Arnold. And then I think 3 months later, I pulled 463 for a new world record. And this is where the 500 kilo started, where I believed that I could pull 500 kilo off the floor. And that's when I started putting the statements out. So as I say, once I pulled the 463 at the World Deadlift Champs 2015, I went to the promoters and said, I want to pull 500 kilo.
How do you get to 500? But how do you even do that in your mind? What made you think, you know what?
It was that magic number, I mean, when I pulled, in 2015, when I pulled 463, I was, I think, 26 years old, I think. Would that be right? Born 1988. Jeez, my maths isn't that good.
Yeah, you're 31 now, so yeah, 27, 26.
27.
Yeah, okay.
27 years old. And I just thought, you know what? The deadlift world record has gone up 20 kilos in the last sort of 20 years. It's gone up a kilo a year. And I thought, it's never going to get anywhere. And I thought, I could do that. I could do the next 20 years, I could do a kilo a year for the next 20 years. But when does the point come where you're not strong enough to do what you're capable of? And I thought to myself, I'm capable of pulling 500 kilo off the floor, so why would I risk doing that opportunity in my lifetime just for money, just for that, doing a world record every year? And I thought to myself, let's up the ante. Let's step it up. Let's go for something special. The first man to pull 1,000 pounds is a man called Andy Bolton, and he is a legend in the strength industry. But I wanted to do something even more extraordinary. I want to be the first man to pull half a ton, the first man to pull 1,100 pounds off the floor. And it just became so obsessive, Once I'd said it, that was it. I've committed, people have heard it. And I don't want to be the guy that said something and not backed it up, because to me, that guy is a dickhead. The guy that shoots his mouth and then never delivers, and I don't want to look like a dickhead. I want to be the guy that says something and delivers. So I set off on this journey to pull 500 kilo off the floor, and I'm 37 kilos away from the world record, which is, I think it was over 8%. It's like Usain Bolt taking nearly a second off the 100 meters. It's pretty special.
But you knew you could do it, or you told yourself you knew you could do it.
I told myself I could do it. And if I'm being dead honest, I did it for money, but I did it for not a greed reason. I did it for money because I needed money to become the world's strongest man. And I don't think people realize that to be the top pro strongman, how expensive it is. I was spending £300 a week on food. I was doing at least £250 a week on physiotherapy. Another £300 a week on recovery treatments, like cryotherapy and hyperbaric chambers and shockwave treatments. I mean, all in, I was spending £800 a week on my body. And when you say that, it's like, fucking hell. But then when you actually break it down, people don't quite realize what that is. That's not the mortgage, that's not the wife, that's not the cars, that's just me. £800 a week to be a pro strongman. And my savings were quickly running out. And I thought, I saved up enough money to quit my job and sell the door business. And I thought, I'm never going to win the world's strongest man unless I can top my bank balance up and be able to take myself all the way. So it was for money. It was to fuel my career. And that was where the inspiration came from for the 500 kilo deadlift, was I needed the money to take myself to that #1 spot.
Right, which you did, and I want to get to that
Yeah.
afterwards. The day of, you got a big crowd in front of you. Again, a lot of people would have already seen the footage. What do you remember from that day?
The 500 kilo? Well, when I said it, and obviously, I set off on this year-long journey from 15 to 16, and exactly a year to train for it. And I went off in the gym, and I couldn't get anywhere near it. The most I ever pulled in the gym was 454 kilo. That's the most I'd ever pulled in the gym. So I go on this year-long journey, and I'm in the gym, and I'm pulling weights, and every week I'm getting more and more frustrated with myself. And then 6 months in, I'm like, shit, I've made a mistake here. I can't pull 500 kilo off the floor. But I'd surrounded myself with an amazing team of doctors, scientists, blood doctors, psychologists, hypnotherapists, you name it. I had this team around me. And it was a scientist that actually sat me down one day and just explained to me that you're never going to be able to lift that off the floor because the human body is not capable of lifting that off the floor. But there is one way. And he said, and this is what really broke it down for me, a day-to-day person who just takes the kids to school, does the shopping, goes to work, has access to about 50% of their muscle fibers. Somebody who trains 20 hours a week, maybe a little bit more, has access to at most 65 to 70% of their muscle fibers. But then you get a woman who's driving down the motorway in a big accident, the kids under a car, and they can lift the car off of the kids. She has access to 100% of the muscle fibers. And why is that? It's the fight or flight scenario. And it's just a massive release of hormone, adrenaline. And it's a natural thing. It's been proven. It's a natural thing that people can do extraordinary feats of strength when they're put in a scenario. And it can't be faked. You can't click a finger and release it. It can't be faked. The only way to get it out of you is for someone to get a gun to your head, live or die, pull that weight off the floor. And obviously I can't do that on the day. I can't get someone to put a shotgun to my face and say, pull that 500 kilo.
I'm sure you could maybe call a few people.
So that's the scenario I had to create in my head.
Okay.
And with a psychiatrist, with a hypnotherapist, we worked together and we got it to a point where I was able to create a scenario in my head that when I walked up to the 500 kilo, I wasn't lifting 500 kilo off the floor. To put it in retrospect, I was lifting a car off of my kids. And that's the only way I was able to do that lift. I had to train my brain to put myself in this scenario. That wasn't the scenario I got in my head, by the way. I'm just giving you an example.
Okay.
The actual scenario is something that I cannot talk about because it's very dark, very deep, very disturbing. But it's something that triggered me. It's something that after months and months and months of talking about the worst scenario you could possibly be in and creating a pinch point on the back of my hand just before I walk out to the crowd, that put my body and mind in this different place. And when I got strapped onto the bar, I get my straps on and I'm sort of rocking it back and forth. And just before I lift, I close my eyes, completely shut, they're shut tight, and I just start lifting. And I watch the footage back and it's actually quite scary to see because my eyes open, but I'm not looking at anything. My eyes open, not on purpose. And my eye colour changes. And you can see it on camera, my eyes change colour. And I pull and pull and pull, and I don't remember doing the lift at all. All I remember is waking up at the top of the lift. And the reason is, I wasn't in that arena. I was off on that motorway lifting a car off my kids. It was such a hard thing to do. And it really, to do that, to lift that half a ton off the floor and put your mind elsewhere was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It really was, mentally, more than physically.
Had you practiced that before that night? Or you
No.
can't really practice it?
No,
Because once you
can't.
practice it, the juice isn't there anymore.
This is the thing. Once you've done it once, it's gone. It's done. You can't do it again. You can only do it once. It's a really tricky thing to do. So like the months of training leading up, I'm doing all these lifts in the gym and I never went above 450. But I'm doing my routine, I'm stamping up and down the gym, I'm hiding in the toilets, pretending that's the toilet in the arena. And then I kick the door off the hinges, come out, stomp into the center of the gym like it was the arena, and I'm ripping onto the bar and I'm attacking it. Everything's exactly the same. I'm doing the same touches. I'm doing everything. And that was all just practice. That was all going through the motions, getting my body through the motions, making sure everything's in line, making sure it touches my shin, making sure the straps are right, making sure the suit's right. But until I actually got locked onto that bar and I started pulling and my eyes shut, that's when I blacked out. And that's when I just woke up at the top of the lift and sort of looked around and just that pure enjoyment for that split second. And then bam, bar goes down, I go down with it. I was conscious. I remember my only sort of memory is I'm looking down at the ground and I can just see a puddle of blood just forming very quickly. Like a good litre of blood on the floor, and it was just pissing out my nose, like unreal, coming out my face. And the guy sit me up, get my shirt off, get my suit off, and then the blood pressure just hits my head and I go unconscious again. So, and I'm in and out of consciousness, so I'm convulsing. You can see it on the video. I'm in and out of consciousness and I'm twitching like this. And everyone's just holding me, just like, fucking hell, I'd calm down. And after about 15, 20 seconds, I come to again. And then someone just whispers in my ear, Ed, just get up and make it look easy. So, of course, I get up and do a little speech to the crowd. And then I get backstage and bam, out again. I'm on a hospital bed, I'm on a trolley. The ECGs are on me, and the paramedics are saying, oh, we can't get the machine to work. And then 2 minutes later, we'll try again. 2 minutes later, oh, it's not working. We'll try again. And by the fifth time when the paramedics are saying they can't get a heart reading, there's something wrong, So they couldn't get my beats per minute was over 200. So my heart was going like this.
Super dangerous.
Super dangerous. Yeah. Blood pressure was unreadable. He said that the blood pressure machine wouldn't even take a reading. It was that high. And I went blind in the middle of my eye. So, when you get you ever had arc eye from welding or anything?
It burns out your
So
eye.
I had like an arc eye. So I couldn't see in the center of my eyes. I had like a dark part. I couldn't see the outside. So everywhere I looked, I was just looking at black spots. And it took me about 3 hours to sort of calm down, get the heart rate down. My vision came back. And, I had blood coming out my tear ducts. I had blood coming out my ears, just little drips. And basically, I just blew my brain.
Your brain was bleeding too.
Yeah, I just blew my brain up, basically. All the blood was just coming out of everywhere. Look like I recovered, 3-4 hours later, I was back out. I was doing meet and greet with the fans. I was signing T-shirts, doing pictures. And then the next day, I got up to drive home and I forgot how to drive my car. So I had to get my old man to come and drive my car back.
Were you as calm as this when all this is happening?
Yeah, I've got a good grip of life, But
when you can't figure out how to drive a car.
I didn't feel comfortable enough to get in and drive on the right side of the road and use the controls. I had to get someone come and drive my car back. And then the next day was back to reality. It was my son's birthday party and a massive party at my house for my son. And we get home and all the family and friends are there and my kids' friends and whatever. And I can't remember anybody. I'm talking to people and I'm like, and then after I'm saying to the wife, who the fuck is that? Oh, that's your sister-in-law, or that's your nephew, that's your cousin. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm having conversations with people and then walking away, coming back, having the same conversation. I the same symptoms as concussion.
Okay.
For 2 weeks after, I was stuttering, like my speech, I couldn't get words out. So, and I saw specialists, and I didn't go for an MRI in the end, but he said, if this doesn't improve in 2 weeks, you're in trouble. Because basically you burst something in your head, and if it doesn't heal and go back to the way it is, you could be in some big trouble. But it just, every day just got better. 2 weeks, I was fine. But that's actually how dangerous it was. It was super, super dangerous.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I'd put more weight on. Definitely.
You'd put more weight on. How much more would you put on?
I think I'd like to do 5'10".
5'10".
5'10". I lifted 500 very comfortably.
It was comfortable.
Very, very comfortable.
Watching yourself, you can look at the mechanics and say that's comfortable.
Yeah, I think I lifted 500 very comfortably. I could have done more. My mistake was holding it at the top of the lift and smiling to everybody. And that was the big up yours to all the haters, all the negativity, all the people that said it couldn't be done. That 4 seconds of holding it there was an up yours to them, but it was that 4 seconds that absolutely destroyed me.
Caused all the bleeding in the brain.
If I'd let it get, if I'd have been given the down signal and just dropped it, I probably had no problems whatsoever. It was the holding it at the top that messed me up.
And was it hard to hold it at the top? It was a strain.
Really hard.
Really hard.
Really hard. I empower any strongman, any bodybuilder, anyone that goes to the gym that trains 20 plus hours a week doing strength training, get 500 kilos on a bar, get it in a rack and just lift it 1 inch and tell me, no one could do it. No one could even lift it 1 inch. It's a ridiculous amount of weight. Ridiculous.
And so ultimately it was that dark place you went, and it wasn't your kids under a car. Because if you can tell me that, then...
It wasn't that. But that's the best way to explain it to people.
Okay. And you'll never go there again, or you can't go there again.
I can't. Oh, well, I mean, I could try. You know, I reckon I could, but I wouldn't have I don't think it'd have the same effect. Because it's that... Once something happens to you twice, I think you get used to it. You know, even if you don't want to.
And in training, you kind of knew where you were going to go in your brain, but you never really went all the way to the dark place. And when you're on that stage, you went all the way there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, it was a really tough thing to do, really hard. And I've tried to talk about it with people and I just break down in tears. I can't talk about it.
Okay. All right, fair enough. And the next day, you're at this party. You've said that's when sometimes the depression comes in. My goal's done.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that like?
So, I think you'll find with most top athletes in any sport, they have this massive high when they're at the top, you know, winning gold medals, setting world records, representing the country, and then the next day, they've got to go back to reality. You know, that high, that euphoria doesn't last forever. And it's been well documented, you know, sports people have some really bad mental problems once they've been successful. Is what do they do? What's life after success? And it's a hard thing to take, you know, like the next day I'm at my son's birthday party, you know, I'm picking up dishes and putting them in the dishwasher. You know, the day before, I just did the biggest lift in human history. And the next day, I'm there, you know, entertaining people at my son's birthday party.
And not many people cared, right?
Exactly. And that's the way it feels, you know? It's just like, you know, of course, everyone was there like, well done, amazing. But then once those are over, it's, you know, what's for dinner? What's, you know, have a beer, you know, go get me the Doritos, you know, it's back to reality. And then I suppose that's where it hits you, is when you've done something so great and so something so amazing. End of the day, it doesn't matter who you think you are, what you've done, you've still got to come back down to reality. And at the end of the day, you've still got to sit down and take a shit like everybody else. And that's when it hits you. That's when it hits. It's tough to take. You can train, you can push yourself, you can you can have all these dreams, but at the end of the day, you're no better than everybody else. And I think I realized that mostly after the 500 kilo deadlift. It really brought me back down to reality. And yeah, the dark thoughts come back, you know, they do come back because you've got to reset your goals again. You've got to reevaluate and attack life again. And it's tough, it's hard. You know, it's like being knocked back almost. Even though you're successful, it's like being pushed back again.
Yeah, whether you win or you lose, the depression still sets in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, luckily, you still had one more big goal to accomplish, and that was to win the World Strongman. And before we get to there, I was wondering if we could find out why was that something that you ever wanted to do? When did that start? And were you always, you know, 350 pounds?
So, again, one of my earliest memories is sitting around, it's always TV.
Isn't that amazing?
As with most people, I
Isn't
think.
that crazy how that can create,
Yeah.
you know, world records and giants?
Yeah.
Just something on a television?
Yeah, it's nuts. So one of my earliest memories, again, is sitting around a TV with the whole family, you know, mum, dad, brothers, nana, granddad, all sitting around the TV at Christmas watching The World's Strongest Man. And I remember watching athletes like, retakes of like Jeff Capes and Bill Kazmaier, Magnus Verd Magnusson and Magnus Samuelsson and John Paul Sigmarsson. And these guys were just, you're looking on TV, especially as a young kid, they're like superheroes. These are guys that are pulling planes, pulling trucks, they're bending bars, they're lifting atlas stones. And I was mesmerized by it. And you know what really sort of solidified in my head was how mesmerized my mum and dad were. And that's when I realized that this is something special. And I remember saying to my mum and dad, one year we were watching Strongman at Christmas, I said, I'll be on there one day. I'll be at World's Strongest Man. And they all burst out laughing.
How old were you?
6 years old.
6 years old.
At most, yeah. And, I suppose I laughed along with them, but I think subconsciously it hurt my feeling. It dug deep. I was like, I've said I'm going to do something, and I've been pushed back. I've been negative, been shunted with negative comments again. And it's just more coal.
Which helped you.
It did.
Because if in these days, everyone would have been really nice and politically correct and said, Eddie, you can be anything you want to be, which means maybe you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, which is what I'd probably say to my son now.
Right. And ruin his chance.
And probably ruin his chance. But yeah, I mean...
in a world where we're all super politically correct, right? And where people are asking, what is masculinity? You compete in something that is the ultimate display of masculinity. Do you think about that sometimes?
Yeah, it's...
Where everyone watches it, like you said, you saw your parents at 6 years old and they're fascinated by it. You can't fake that.
I think that's the beauty of strongman is people, no matter what, you can do fighting, you can do all sorts of different fighting and all sorts of different sports. But I think at the end of the day, the human race wants to know who's the alpha. And the world's strongest man, in my eyes, and as a child, that decided that fact. Who is the alpha? Whoever won the world's strongest man was the alpha of the world. And that's why it mesmerized me in a way, is I want to be that guy. I want to be the alpha.
And you said every man wants to be the alpha, true.
They do.
Right? Whether they want to admit it or not.
Whether they do or not.
Most would say, no, that's not true.
If somebody said to me, I'm not bothered. I wouldn't want to be the alpha, a guy. I don't want to be the alpha male on the planet. Fuck off. You lying piece of shit. Everyone wants to be the alpha. It's their dream to be the alpha. Maybe when the people get older and, get comfortable with their lives, they're not arsed. But I think a young man, ambition, what do I do in my life? Would you want to be the world's strongest man? If they said no, they're lying. They are lying. No doubt about it.
Okay.
Everyone wants to be the world's strongest man. For sure.
All right, and you did it 6, and yet your family was like, yeah, okay, maybe not, and that started putting the coal on the fire.
Yeah. I mean, you know what, my mum and dad are really special people, but they were always very negative with me, very, very negative. And I got into my swimming, which I suppose was another sort of big segment in my life.
What was your stroke?
Freestyle.
Freestyle, all right.
Freestyle, yeah.
And you were good.
Very good. Yeah, and I think we were all pushed into a swimming, but it was more just to keep us good. We're all very, I suppose, very free brothers. With ADHD, we're all very energetic. We're all over the place. We needed to expend some energy, and I think the pushing us into the pool was easy. And
you said you have an old story about your first time in the pool when you were in Portugal. Yeah.
So
it's a fitting tale of who you are, isn't it?
It is. It really is. I was a national champion swimmer. I won the nationals 3 years in a row. I set British records. I was on the world-class potential squad, which is like the junior Olympic team. I was the best in the country by a mile as well, not just by a little bit. I was the best in the country for my age by an absolute mile. And that segment of my life got shut down. But I tell people about it, and people say, oh, how did you even get into swimming? And when I asked my mum, because obviously, I'm too young to remember that. I was like, how did I get into swimming? My mum was a swimming teacher, and my eldest brothers were good swimmers as well. And I was on holiday in Portugal, and this is how I started swimming. On holiday in Portugal, running and jumping in the pool, 2 years old, can't swim. And every time I'd jump in, somebody would have to fish me out because I was drowning. So my mum, my dad, my brothers, I think my grandma was there, kept fishing me out. After about 5 days in, the 1000th time I jumped in the swimming pool, my mum just stood on the edge of the pool, looked at me and just said, "Fuck you, sink or swim." And I swam. She said,
That's actually what she said.
That's the exact word she said. That's what she said. She said. And I swam. She said, I just started swimming. I swam to the side and that's it. Jumped back in, swam back. Then I'm swimming more. And it was those words that when she told me those words, I was like, that just defines me all over. You know, it's you do two things in life, and this is very relative to me and my mental health, is you either sink, you dwell, you blame the world, you blame everybody else for your problems, and you fall, you crumble inwards, and and that's when people end their own lives and they kill themselves or they self-harm. Or you swim, you move forward, you set goals, you have ambitions, and you get up, you get out that hole, you stop blaming everybody, and you go and get what you want. And that I always use these words when I try and do my talks to people and everything. It's you sink or swim. You do one or the other. You've got to pick one. And obviously, there's only one right answer. There's only one you can pick. It's swim. Because if you don't keep swimming, moving forward in life, you're gonna do some bad things. You're gonna sink, dwell, and it's a very dark, horrible place if you start doing that. And a lot of people these days are in that position.
Yeah, and you've been there before.
Yeah.
Tell me how the swimming career went off the cliff, and then what happened to you afterwards.
So I was 13 years of age. I'd won the Nationals 3 years in a row on the world-class potential squad. And I started suffering with very bad anxiety attacks, which really affected my nutrition. To the point where I was that anxious, I couldn't eat or drink. I feel sick all the time. And that's when the swimming started, dropping off. I fell out with coaches. My head was such a mess.
Why did that happen, do you reckon? Why anxiety then? Puberty or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe some chemical imbalance. That's been proven a lot. There's a lot of hormone imbalance in teenagers these days, and it can trigger a lot of anxiety. I couldn't tell you the answer to that, but it happened, and it was bad as well. I'd have anxiety attacks at school. I'd be hiding in the toilets. And I was a big guy. I was the biggest guy in my age. I was a big, confident guy, good with the ladies. I was a class clown. I was always up for a laugh, always outgoing, always up for doing stuff, and then couldn't do anything. I wouldn't leave the house. I think because of this anxiety and everything I was going through, I rebelled. My attitude changed at school. I got very, very violent and vicious with a lot of people. Fighting almost became my outlet. I'd love fighting. I'd love beating people up. I'd love getting beat up myself, weirdly. I just love being involved with that kind of stuff. Violence and drinking as well. Even at 13 years of age, drinking, fighting, drugs, it just took over.
Anything to kind of change your consciousness.
Yes, I suppose, yeah.
Right.
And I ended up getting expelled from high school. I was obviously chucked off the swimming squad, off the Olympic team sort of thing. My nan, who I was very, very close to, or I spent a hell of a lot of time with, was diagnosed with cancer. And I think that was the ultimate trigger for me, where my life just imploded. That's when I just stopped sort of caring. I just didn't give a shit. Obviously we'd been expelled from school. I was home alone all day. I was locked in my bedroom. I wouldn't come out of my room. I wouldn't leave the house. I was on prescribed Prozacs. I was seeing psychiatrists, and this was like 13 years of age. So hit rock bottom is the right word. It was a very, very bad place. And then to top the cake, I ended up getting a girl pregnant around about the same time as well. So it all just kept piling on. And it went on for about 18 months, Prozac, psychiatrists, and I wouldn't leave the house barely for about 18 months.
Wow. And
it was when mum and dad one day just sort of sat me down, nice generic conversation as, Ed, we know you're ill, we can see you're struggling, but what the fuck are you going to do with your life? It's not going to, you can't do this. You can't lock yourself in your house. You're not being educated. You're not socializing. You're not doing any sport. You're not doing anything. And just at the time, there was a gym opened up down the road, Total Fitness, I think it was. And I said, why don't you join a gym? I was like, okay, fuck it. I'll do that then. And I went, and I felt great. the first gym session in there, I walked out and I had a feeling of euphoria, like I felt good about myself. And I realized that was my outlet. And I think when I stopped swimming, it really did dive down. It got worse and worse and worse. So I didn't have any outlet for my energy, for my pent-up aggression or anything.
But you didn't realize that at the time.
You don't realize it.
Right.
So lifting weights for me was my outlet. It was replacing, and I suppose with my swimming career as well, you know, and I'll never forget this, when I was sort of 12, 13 years old and I was going through this stage of getting expelled from school. And I remember a substitute teacher kept me behind class once, and he was just, I'd never seen him before in my life, and he kept me behind after a class because I was acting like a knobhead. And he just really shocked me. He said, just me and him in a classroom. He was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "What?" It's like, "What the fuck are you doing with your life?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'm here, aren't I?" So yeah, but you're acting like a fucking little dick. And this is coming from a teacher. He just give it me. You know, I just say, well, I'm not bothered anyway. I'm going to be an Olympic swimmer. You know, I'm going to be an Olympic swimmer. I'm going to make money off swimming. I don't give a fuck about this. And he just said, "You're a fucking idiot." He said, "What if the swimming doesn't work? You know, what if that doesn't? What are you going to do then? What if your swimming doesn't work? You're going to be a bum. You're going to live on the streets," and proper prodding me in the chest. And I suppose it was this substitute teacher actually changed my life around and made me realize that you can't rely on one thing. You can't rely on just swimming for the rest of your life. And that's, I suppose, when the swimming went away, that memory come back of that substitute teacher poking me in the chest, saying, "You're an idiot, it's not going to work." And I suppose it left this massive void in my life going forward, as I'm not going to be an Olympic champion swimmer. And I filled that with the weightlifting. It's like, then I wanted to become Arnold Schwarzenegger because I was old enough to train, started going to the gym, started lifting weights, felt really good about myself. I set this goal at 14 years of age to be Mr. Olympia. And went on an amazing journey, you know, put it this way, 14, 15, 16, when everyone else is at school studying for the GCSEs, I was at home pumping iron, you know? And it was amazing. I remember at 16 years of age, I could send you a photo to put to the video. At 16 years of age, I was 16 stone at 6'1" tall, and I was not an ounce of body fat on me. I was absolute shredded, you know, a mean machine. And it just inspired me to go on and on and on. And I kept building my body, kept getting bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. And then at 19 years of age, I realized that I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia. I'm too tall. You know, I'm 6'3" at this point in my life, because I'm never going to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger. But then I realized that, you know, from YouTube and Facebook and whatever else, that I realized I was one of the strongest men in the country at 19 years of age. And I should be doing something with this talent. You know, I was benching sort of 200 plus kilos, squatting 300 kilo, deadlifting 320, 340 kilo at 19. You know, these are figures that the pros were doing. And I thought, I've got to do something with it. I've got to test the waters. And it was actually my brother who found me a contest in Manchester to sort of do my first strongman contest. And I entered, I came 5th. And that's when I made the statement of becoming the world's strongest man and stuck by it. And that was the start of my strongman career, really. Wow.
You ever looked into your genetics, and do people ever ask where your genetics are?
I have, you know. I've done many DNA tests. I've done one with a company called Mudo, who really dived into my DNA. And they found a gene called, it's an MSTN deformity, actually. And you find it in, you know, the Belgian blue cows, you know, the big muscly cows that just have muscles on muscles and muscles. So they've got the MSTN gene, and they've got type 1. And humans can have it as well. They can have type 1, which is very, very rare. I think there's been a few cases of people out, you see babies with muscles on them, but they don't live very long. But then there's a type 2 MSTN gene where they basically, it limits the amount of myostatin you produce. And myostatin limits how much muscle mass your skeletal frame can hold. So if you've got no myostatin, there's no limit to how big you can get. So I've got this gene where I don't produce as much myostatin as any other person. And they call it the Hercules gene. So, and it's super rare. So basically I can hold a lot more muscle mass than any other normal person. And I suppose it was just the stars were aligned that I decided to become the world's strongest man, and I had this gene to sort of make it possible.
Does anyone in your family have it, or is it kind of a mutation for you?
I believe, sorry, I just pulled my mic.
That's right.
I'll put it back on.
All right.
I believe that it runs in the family. I mean, I found out, once I had this, it's a funny story, because once I had this sort of DNA test done, I went and had others done, and I found out that I was a large percentage of sort of Scandinavian, like Swedish, Switzerland. And my mum and dad are British. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. So we had the conversation with, my mum and everything, and it turns out my mum was adopted.
Oh, wow.
So I actually found out that my mum was adopted from Switzerland, or
Sweden, or whatever,
Sweden,
the Nordics. Yeah.
Via my nan, and that's how I found out. So I'm actually a Viking, got the gene. And you look at, and then I'm pretty certain, looking at my mum and dad, my dad's big, my dad's 6'3" nearly, 14 stone guy, he's in his 60s now, but you can, his day, he was a big guy. And then I look at my mum, and she only has to lift a weight, and her arms blow up, and she's got calves as big as mine. And I'm not joking, they're as big as mine.
Wow.
So I think the gene has come from my mum's side, from the Viking sort of side. And I can see it in my brothers, because they're very thick set. My brother was a pro rugby player. And then my daughter, who is 10 years old right now, nearly turning 11, and she's huge. She's the biggest in the year, tallest and width. And they had a sports day the other day, and she won a few things, but then she said, well, it's funny you say that, Dad, because we had an arm wrestling competition after. I was like, right, and did you get involved? You got stuck in? She's like, yeah. I says, did you beat the girls? She's like, yeah. I was like, what about the boys? She said, yeah. It's like, what, you beat all the boys in your year? She's like, yeah, thrashed them, no problem. So I've got my 10-year-old daughter who's twice as strong as the boys in a year, she's a big girl.
Is strong woman a thing, or will it be?
It is a thing, yeah.
It is, yeah.
So I'm pretty certain that she's got the gene, and I can see it in my lad as well. He's just started doing some sports, but he's got the bulk around his ribs, and he's got his shoulders sort of starting to sprout out. And he's only 6 years old, so.
Why?
I think it's a hereditary thing.
And the Nordics are typically successful in strongman, right?
Yeah, the Icelandics, the Swedish, yeah. They've won a lot of titles between them. Norway. I'd say they've got more titles than any other part of the world. That
gene, maybe, or variants of that gene.
I think it is. I think it's a Viking gene. Yeah, it's like the MSTN gene could possibly come from the Viking sort of place in the global map.
Wow. You mentioned your nan. Can you tell me about her and the way she affected your life? So, I mean, my nan, she looked after me no end when I was young. Obviously, being a very troublesome child, expelled from primary school, always sent home from school at all ages, always in trouble with the police. Mum and dad always picking me up from the police station most weekends. And it was always my nan. She was the only person, and I think perhaps a lot of people could say this, I would talk back to my parents, even a young boy, mum and dad would tell me off, like, fuck off. 5, 6 years old, I was a right horrible little bastard. And the same with the teachers. I just didn't care. I don't know what it was about me. I just had this sort of really bad attitude to sort of learning at school and growing up. I just wanted to be a grown-up. I wanted to be a free spirit, But I never once rebelled or talked back or disrespected my nan, because I don't know what it is. She just knew how to talk to me and calm me down and talk sense into me. And she's the one who, kept me on that educational path. And she almost educated me herself. Kept me straight and narrow. Always gave me advice, and it was always solid advice. So I suppose my nan, in that respect, was more mother to me than my actual mum was. She was I saw her more as a mother than my actual mum, because I suppose that's kind of like the right and wrong thing to say. Treated my nan like my mum. Right.
Like I should have treated my mum. Is probably the right thing to say.
Right.
And yeah, when she got diagnosed with cancer, that obviously was a very bad point in my life. And that was all during the depression period. And she inspired me a lot, you know. She would always talk to me about my dreams. She was always the one that was never negative. She would never say you can't do this or you can't do that. She was always my biggest supporter. And sorry, I get a bit welled up here.
Yeah, it's okay.
And it was it was on my nan's deathbed that when my nan died, I was the only one there in the hospital. Sorry, it's just a tough thing to talk about.
Yeah, I understand. I appreciate you talking about it.
And as I say, it was she was the only person I could talk to about my dreams, and I would never get anything negative back. You know, she always believed in me. Come on, Dad. And on a deathbed, when she died, I was the only one there. And when they put you in a room with the deceased, and you can have your private time with them. I just remember talking to my nan for hours on end about my life, about these about my dreams, about my aspirations. And the strongman came up. It was, a few months after I did the strongman contest and said I was going to win the world's strongest man. And I made the promise to my nan on a deathbed that I would win the world's strongest man one day. Which I think is why I took it so seriously, going forward in life. It was a promise that I couldn't break, because if I had never achieved it, then I'm letting her down.
Right.
I'm letting her down, not just myself. And that's one of the main things that kept me going through all the hard times, all the mental health, was I knew my nan was always up there watching over me, pushing me forward, watching everything I was doing, all those training sessions, all that sacrifice, all those hundreds of hours of work I put in to pay for the strongman. So...
Was she with you in those training sessions?
Oh, definitely.
Talk to her, you feel her there?
I remember, the day she died, I was there 2 minutes. I arrived. She was alive. I arrived. I was talking to her. Within 2 minutes, her heart stopped beating. Wow. So it was almost as if she waited for me to get to the hospital and get by her bedside before she actually went. And then I told her these, my aspirations, my dreams about the world's strongest man. And then my mum came and sort of, I said, right, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave you to have your privacy with your mum, And I went straight to the gym. And that's when the training started, in effect. That's when the world's strongest man was like, it wasn't penciled in my ambitions in life, it was penned in.
Right.
It had to happen. So that's when my training stepped up. That's when the meals got bigger. That's when the stretching came in. That's when everything got serious from that point, So
because you owed it to her.
Yeah.
And that was you thanking her for being there for you your whole life.
Yeah, I would say so.
Because without Nanan, none of this stuff happens, right? Probably not.
None of it. None of it. If it wasn't for my nan, I wouldn't have been the swimmer. I wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have done the half a ton. I wouldn't have won the worlds. None of that would have happened if it had not been for my nan's sort of impact on my life.
Thank God for grandmas, huh? You got me crying now, Eddie. Wow. And so she was there through all of those times when otherwise you might have quit, or those times when you're making all of those sacrifices.
Yeah, when it got tough, and it did get hard, she was always one that sprung to the front of my mind, and kept me pushing forward. And it did get tough over the years. I've dedicated more than like the best years of my life to strongman. Obsessively. Just need to compose myself a minute, sorry.
And what were those hard moments? Because you went and basically separated from your family, and you were singularly focused on what you were doing. And that took a lot of sacrifices that I don't think a lot of people see.
Yeah, it was a hard journey, I started a full-time job when I was 17 as a truck mechanic. I was working 60 hours a week, doing, on the spanners, fixing trucks. At 18, I started up my first, like a security business. I was running a lot of the security in Stoke-on-Trent. All in total, I was working 80 plus hours a week, plus running accounts, plus paying people, plus filling in on doors as well, doing the doors myself because people would always let me down. And that went on for, the best part of 8 to 9 years, nearly probably 10 years of working 80 plus hours a week, plus training 20 hours a week. My days, this is what my days consist of. I get up at 6 a.m., I would eat, go to work, do a 10-hour day at work, finish it like 5, half 5. I'll go to the gym, I train for 4 hours, so I'd be training until sort of 9:30 at night. And then I'd be home, it'd be a meal, and then straight to bed. And if I'm doing that, 6, 7 days a week, I wasn't seeing my wife, I wasn't seeing my kids. I'm not joking when I say this, I probably wasn't seeing my wife and kids for more than 2 hours a week. A week. And that was a big sacrifice. And when I got to say 24, 25, that really got even worse. And this is when I started taking it a bit more seriously. Those 1 or 2 hours took away, and it's like, right, I'm sorry, babe, but I need to do my physio. I need to do my stretching. I need to go do my hot cold. And it got less and less and less. And I think my darkest year was probably 2016 to 17, that last year of the strongman. I was just absolutely obsessed. And I think, my wife can vouch for that. I was ill. I was ill to the point of being obsessed with the strongman.
Mentally ill.
Mentally ill. Like just obsessed. Like
just obsessed. That was
obsessed. I all I could talk about was strongman. All I could think about was strongman. All I ever said was strongman. All I ever acted was strongman. And I wasn't seeing my wife and kids at all. So for 365 days, my routine was get up, eat, back to bed, eat, back to bed, go and train, back to bed, go and eat, back to bed. It was just a regiment. I was military precision day in, day out. And I did that for 365 days. And I remember going into World's Strongest Man 2017, and I remember just before the last event, I thought, no matter what, at least out of all the guys here, I know for a fact I tried the hardest. There's no way anyone put more dedication in than me. Whether I came first, second, third, or last, I couldn't have stood on that second place spot and said, oh, well, I lost because I missed a meal 6 months ago, or I missed a training session a month ago, I couldn't have said that because I didn't. Because for 365 days solid, I didn't miss one meal, one physio session, one hyperbaric, one training. I was just so regimented. And just imagine getting up every day and doing that every single day for 365 days, never having a day off. And there were some times where, you know, I'd get in, I'd come in from a training session at 10:30 at night, and I'd eat a meal, and then I'd go and sit in a hyperbaric chamber on my own for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whilst my wife and kids were in the house sleeping. I'd never see them. And I'd be sitting in this chamber that I'd have to pressurize to 30 psi, breathe through an oxygen pipe, tiny little perspex window at the bottom of my garden, all on my own, no electronics, no TV, no nothing. And I'd just sit in this chamber looking through this little perspex window for an hour and a half every single day at the end of the day. And those were the dark moments. Those were the ones where it was like, this is too tough now. You know, I was in there and I was thinking, shall I just end this? It was just too much. I mean, it was always my nan that sprung to mind. It was like, no, you've got to keep going.
You gotta just keep going.
Got to do it.
A few more months.
Yeah, that's what it always was. And that's what I always said to my wife. It was always, oh, just this little bit more, just 2 more weeks, just 3 more weeks, just 5 more weeks.
But nobody wants to hear that over and over again.
They
right?
don't.
You separated before that contest, right?
We had a very bad sort of relationship about 4 or 5 weeks before the World's Strongest Man, where obviously I didn't see my wife for the best part of a year. You know, we might as well not have been married. My kids didn't have a dad. And this is what really upsets me the most at that time, is that, you know, I had a daughter that was at the time 7 years old, 8 years old. I didn't know her. I didn't know my daughter. I didn't know my son, because I just didn't spend any time with them whatsoever. There was no birthday. I didn't do birthdays. I didn't do meals out. I didn't do christenings. I didn't do anything because I was so regimented. And she always threw that in my face, you know. And she says, I don't really give a fuck about me and you, but it's what you're doing to Max. It's what you're doing to Layla that's wrong. And she was right in a way. It was pretty mean, really, as a father, to sacrifice all that family time for his own selfish goal, you know? And 5 weeks before the World's Strongest Man, obviously, these are the crucial sort of, training's picking up a pace. And we're getting, you know, I'm coming in from training sessions, I'm broke. I'm training for 4 or 5 hours. I'm walking through the house and I'm injured all the time. I'm sore from head to toe. It's like I've been in a car crash every day. And then my wife wants to talk. And I'm like, not tonight. But it was like that every night. And in the end, it was, you know, one day she's gone, you know, she's not at home. I'm like, where are you? I've had enough. I'm fucking fed up, Eddie. I can't live like this. I can't be your slave. All she was doing was cooking, cleaning, doing my laundry, you know, doing my meals. And I was just treating her like a maid. And when I look back, she was my own personal slave. And, you know, it just helping me win the World's Strongest Man. And I just said, right, I said, well, I've got 5 weeks till the World's Strongest Man. I said, I can't give up now. I said, go and stay at your dad's, whatever. I said, but once this 5 weeks are done, I'm done. Once I've won this World's Strongest Man, we're going to go back to normal. You know, we're going to go back to husband and wife, and my kids are going to have a dad again. And so I convinced her to sort of hang on for me for this last 5 weeks. And I think if she had have left me, it would have destroyed me. But I knew at the end of it, there was a marriage there. And that's what really, you know, got my head down and went to this very, very dark place for the last 5 weeks. And just, I mean, I came into it's like I said, I came into the World's Strongest Man without a single excuse. Not one. Not a one. And I was just so confident going into the World's Strongest Man. And there was no way I was losing that title. I was beyond confident. I'd already spent the prize money before I got there, you know? It was just a ridiculous amount of confidence. And I delivered. You know, I strolled into World's Strongest Man and I absolutely smashed him. I out-squatted him, I out-pressed him, I outran him. there was nobody can deny that I was the strongest man on the planet that day. And that very rarely happens at World's Strongest Man. You know, you can say, oh, he got lucky or, you know, good events, but there was none of that. You know, I dominated. There was no question. And with the 500 kilo deadlift to back it up, if you think you're stronger than me, go and beat that world record. Because in my eyes, you ask any strongman the question, what defines a man? What defines an athlete? What defines a strength athlete? If you had to say one lift, what defines the strongest man in history? And they'll all say the deadlift. Who can pick up the most weight from the floor to his hips? And that man's me. So in my eyes, I think, in my opinion, I am the strongest man in history that's ever lived. So I've picked up the most weight from the floor. And I don't think there's any argument for that. People could say, oh, he's only won one title. I only wanted one title, you know? I proved my dominance and I proved I could live half a ton off the floor. Everyone else is still yet to come and prove it.
Did you have a word with your nan after you won that thing?
I did. I think if you watched the final, when I won my winning interview, I'm pointing to the sky and I'm thanking my nan for all that support and guidance, you know, through whatever means it was there.
Day afterwards, how is that day not different than the birthday party?
Oh, geez.
You know, and if I was your wife, why would I believe you by saying for only 5 weeks left, you know? So that's, you know, that's the real question. But this was different, right?
It is different. I mean, this was the ultimate goal. And this one, obviously, this meant the most to me. 500 kilo was great. You know, it proved a lot of point. But I think the World's Strongest Man's always been that ultimate goal. I say to be the alpha, even just for one day, that's what I wanted. I just wanted to prove I could do it. And I suppose the next day, the phone calls homes, you know, the phone call homes were very, very emotional, as you can imagine, you know, mum, dad, brothers, sisters, I've got a sister, wife, you know, kids. It was very emotional, you know, all that relief, all that stress just lifted off my shoulders. You know, I've got my marriage back. I've got my wife back. And
Thor, also known as the Mountain, was there at that event, and you beat him handily. You said
he came second. Yeah, he actually argued quite a few matters on that. Where he tried to say this was fixed, that was fixed, that the referee was on my side, and all this shite. When you break down all his points, it was just a man clutching at straws. Literally, you know, he got beaten in a strongman contest and he couldn't take it. And I think other than punching a man in the face, I think that is the most direct way to beat a man in a strength contest.
Right. That's what you did.
Yeah.
Day afterwards, how was that day different than the birthday party? And are you worried about that? You must be thinking, when I wake up tomorrow morning, am I going to be back?
So I'll be honest, you know, afterwards I had a huge amount of euphoria. You know, I literally felt on top of the planet, godlike. You know, you just it's a surreal feeling. It's completely different to winning a gold medal at the Olympics. This is out of 7 billion people, you are the strongest. You are the alpha. You're the one. And for me, it was such a surreal thing to take in. It never really sank in. Do you want me to tell you when it sank in? The day I lost the title. That's when it sank in. That's when I realized that I had it, when I lost it.
Interesting.
It's so yeah, I'd say for a few months I had a good euphoria. You know, it was obviously I had my down points, but it was a good euphoria. I felt as though I was winning at life. You know, I completed life. I was successful, and then the privilege wears off quite quickly. You know, you are coming back down to reality. You know, all the endorsements came in thick and fast, the appearances. I did a good year of solid, you know, work, basically capitalizing on the win. And then I wanted to sort of back away from that, take a bit of time for myself. And that's when it was like, what do I do now? And that's when the depression kicked in again. And it's like, where do you go after success? What do you do with yourself? It's not like with the deadlift where I can reset my goals in the strength industry. There's nothing else I could do. I've done it all. I've done the deadlift. I've done the World's Strongest Man. So where do I go next? And then I just looked to Arnold again. I looked to Arnold Schwarzenegger. What did he do? He used sport as a stepping stone to get into Hollywood, to break into the movies, get into acting. So just like that, right, that's it. I started doing acting lessons. I've been doing acting lessons now for 2 years. I signed up with a London agent and started getting my name out there, you know, for TV shows, movies. And 2 years later, I've just done 2 seasons for 2 TV shows. Done one on my own TV show, Eddie Eats America, which is basically like a man versus food / strongman / cultural sort of program. And then I'm doing one for the History Channel, The Strongest Man in History. And that's basically me and 3 other strongmen going back in time and doing these feats of strength that you hear about, you know, the Chinese whispers, and you see pictures of guys lifting up elephants and bulls across the back, and people lifting up cars on stages in the Victorian times. And I suppose we're going back in time and investigating these historic figures like the Louis Seirs and the Paul Andersons, and to put it in the right concept for you to understand, like the Hercules. You know, you hear these stories of Hercules. Is he a real guy? Did he do these feats of strength? You know, where did it come from? I suppose our job is to go back in time and replicate what these guys did, relive their lives, see if it can be done. And if it can't be done, you know, if we can't do it, the strongest men on the planet can't do it, then it's bullshit. But maybe they did some trickery. Maybe they used some levers, some ropes. Maybe they had some certain technique. And that's what we go back in time and do. We go back in time and relive these guys' lives and what they did. And I think it's actually really interesting. And it's like, I think it'll really work. You know, we've just done season 1. We're talking about season 2. But it's like these TV shows that just, you never forget. You know, I think we talked about this earlier. It's like the Man versus Food with Adam Richman. Yeah. I think you say Man versus Food over anywhere on the globe, they know what you're talking about. Because it was just so... It captured the audience. It was so unique. And then you've got the river monsters that me and my wife just love to sit down and watch a guy fish out these 400-pound grouper fish from the ocean, you know. It's weird, but it works. It captures the amount. And I feel as though the History Channel one is really one of those TV shows that can really captivate the audience.
It's a big deal, too.
It is,
History Channel's a big deal.
It is.
I mean, 3 years ago, if I told Eddie you're going to be on the History Channel, would you have laughed in my face? Or not? Or did you know you were going to be Schwarzenegger?
I'd probably laugh, fuck off, it's not going to happen, you know. It's a bit, I say it's all surreal, and it's all off the back of success. It's what that title has opened up a whole avenue of opportunities for me, and that's 2 of them. You know, there's quite a lot more on the cards. You know, I'm meeting big film producers, and I mean big ones. Working with Arnold Schwarzenegger on a documentary.
What's it about?
So I've got a documentary on Netflix already called Eddie Strongman, and there's another one called Born Strong as well.
Okay.
And so it's basically a follow-on from Eddie 1. Where, you know, Eddie 1 was about the story of a working class guy, obviously a true story, a working class guy that's trying to become the world's strongest man. And he goes through all this hardship and you know, and loss and grief and sacrifice for this dream. And I suppose the end of the film leaves this big question mark of what happened to this guy after, you know, this was filmed in 2000. It was released in 2015. What happened to this guy? And 2 years later, I win the world's strongest man. I suppose that's where the film picks up. I do the half-ton deadlift. I do the impossible. You know, I win the world's strongest man. So I achieve the dream, you know, that I evidently set myself in previous years. And then it's about following in the footsteps of Arnie. You know, it's about what life after success. It's breaking into the movie industry. So it's landing these TV shows. It's working alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. But then I also want to make it about mental health. You know, the film's got to have a crunch on it, and that's it for me. Because mental health right now is so rife, especially in the UK, and it's such a hard thing to talk about. You know, you can't talk about it with your mates because you feel weak. People can't open up to family because it makes them look weak. But I suppose I want to spread that message that you shouldn't feel weak. You know, it's such a common thing out there that you should just open up to a family member or a friend, or like me sat here opening up to you and millions of people on YouTube. You know, it's it's something that you just should open up about. And I think once you've opened up about it, you accept it and you can sort of learn to deal with it and move forward in life. And I think what I've done is used goals. It's like the sink or swim. You know, I've used goals in my life to keep setting goals, keep pushing forward and moving forward in life. And I've achieved that success. And it's like, back down again. And then back up we go. Right, I'm chasing Hollywood now. And this is exactly what Arnold's done his entire life. And I suppose, you know, the film is really about inspirational people. And the main one, you know, Arnold, as a young kid, was inspired by a guy called Reg Parks, like I think one of the original Hercules in the films. Mm. And then Arnold's grown up to be this huge, massive superstar who has in turn inspired people like myself and other bodybuilders and movie stars. And then I've myself gone on and inspired millions of people in what I've done. And then it's that massive knock-on effect from inspirational people. And I think that's a lot to do with mental health. You know, it's sometimes we need heroes to look up to sort of keep track of our life and keep pushing forward.
I mean, there's some 13-year-old kid in the world right now who's probably been locked in his room for a year who's watching this, you know?
Yes.
You know? And looking at you, I mean, you literally could have ended up dead in that room.
Yeah.
Or amounting to nothing or whatever. And instead, you're the world's strongest man, you know? So if that's not an inspiration, what isn't, right?
Well, that you know, when you say it like that, it doesn't really click in my head that, you know, 18 years ago, I was locked in my room thinking about and trying to kill myself as a young boy. And for whatever reasons, you know, I've turned my life around. And as you say, you know, I've been there, done it, and I've become the world's strongest man from rock bottom, literally rock bottom, from a kid wanting to kill himself to fast forward 29 years old, winning the world's strongest man and becoming a success. So I think giving that message out there that you can turn your life around, you know, mental health, yes, it's a problem and you probably will suffer with it for the rest of your life, but there's ways to deal with it and there's ways to enjoy your life around it. That's for sure.
And for you, those things, and this is what you tell other people, goal setting. Again, sink or swim. This is your IP. This is going to be in your book, I hope.
It is.
Yeah, good. Sink or swim. And also, you said something else. When you were a kid in 13, you were blaming everybody for your problems. And that can make mental illness worse, right? When you don't take ownership?
Yes. You know, I mean, I was expelled from school and that wasn't my fault. That was the teachers. That was the other kids. That was my parents. I was, you know, chucked off the swimming squad. That was the coach's fault. It was the other swimmers. I'm getting the girl pregnant. It's not my fault. She did it. You know, everything's, you just blame, you don't want to take responsibility for shit. You just want to blame everybody else and feel as though you're owed everything. You want people to give you an A in your GCSE. You want people to give you a gold medal at the national championships. And it doesn't work like that. You've got to go out and fucking earn it. You know, you've got to keep pushing forward in life. It can be a very dark, dangerous place if you start blaming the world. And I think a lot of people do. You know, I've got quite a few friends in the past. I've got my old training partner. Well, I still see him a lot now, but my old training partner has gone through a very, very bad state of mental health recently. And he went through a state of blaming everybody else. You know, it was her, it's him, it's that, it's my ex-wife, it's this. And I'm like, you know, I've always been supporting him. But then he went and got help. He went and saw a psychiatrist and he's broke everything down. And you won't see him now, completely different person. And he doesn't blame everybody. He just gets on with it now. He just accepts it and moves forward. And the change in him is amazing. And he sought help, you know, and I think that's the biggest thing he did. And he's 39 years old and he's always suffered with it. And it got to the point where he was going to kill himself and he went and saw a psychiatrist and he sorted himself out. And it's talking, it's releasing, it's accepting that life isn't always everybody else's fault. It's, you know, sometimes it just lands on you, deal with it and move forward.
If anyone's watching this now and they're in that dark place, is that the thing they should really do? Just talk to someone? Is that the most important thing?
I think that is the most important thing. You know, when I was a kid, 13 years of age, I wouldn't talk to my mum. You know, I was depressed. I was having anxiety attacks. I was depressed. I wanted to kill myself. I tried to kill myself. And I couldn't talk to my brothers because, you know, it's that competitive monster in me doesn't want to be a failure in life. I don't want to let my brothers know I'm weak. You don't want to talk to your mum and dad because you feel as though you're letting them down. You feel as though you're a failure. You don't want to talk to, your friends because you just look like a loser. There's no one to talk to, is there? Really, when you think about it, when you break it down, people always say on Facebook, oh, if somebody puts the depressed on Facebook nowadays, you always see the comment, oh, well, I'm here if you need to talk. It doesn't actually make a fucking difference. You need to go and see someone who understands what you're going through and go and talk and release that to a professional. And I think that's the best thing you can do is talk to a professional. That's what sorted me out. That's what got me sort of moving forward, because I was stuck in a rut. Right. At 13, 14 years of age, I was stuck in a hole for 18 months. And it was a psychiatrist and the Prozacs that got me out of that hole. I will openly admit that. The NHS worked for me for once.
Hollywood, is that ever going to replace that physical struggle, that alphaing out the alphas? I'm sure you've been asked this before, but to kick an athlete where that is your place, being in the crucible and then going out there and performing and delivering, will there always be a yearning for that?
Yeah, of course. I've always got that competitive monster in me. I commentated World's Strongest Man this year, and watching on's very hard, and it's a real kick in the ego when you're watching guys that you used to beat quite easily, doing very well in strongman, and I genuinely, watching this year was tough because I genuinely thought as though, if I'd have got my boots on and done a year's training, I'd have thrashed it. And I thought the same last year as well, but that's my mentality. And it's hard for me to sort of take a step back and think to myself, no, because I could be back in the strongman game, breaking my body and being that ridiculously obsessive man with, losing his wife and kids. Or I can be the guy that's took a step back, realised that there's no longevity in strongman. It's not going to last forever. You are going to break down. Your body's going to break. You're not going to be that strong forever. Take a step back and make money, capitalise off of that success. I've won the World's Strongest Man. Now let's use that title and get into places. And I suppose Hollywood was an easy choice, getting into the movies and the TV shows. If Joe Bloggs wants to go for an audition for a big movie, no, sorry, we've only got 100 audition spaces. If the World's Strongest Man wants to audition for a movie, oh yeah, it's front to the queue. So it's created those opportunities for me, and I've got to grip them with both hands now. Doing these, got the 2 TV shows, doing the documentary with Arnold, got some movies lined up later in the year, end of next year as well. I'm gripping it with both hands and I'm going for it. I've got to,
But it's uncomfortable because you know how to train 4 hours a day. You know how to eat. You know how to hyperbaric chamber. You know how to do that. This is, agents and parties and I'll call you back and let's do lunch. And 2 years later, acting lessons, that's probably hard.
It's tough. How I'm finding it now is, I'm still training. I try and do 3 to 4 hours training every day because that's my life. I enjoy it. I enjoy keeping in shape and it's my release. It's always been my release. And I suppose I have replaced all the other stuff. So I've replaced the stretching, the physio, the hyperbaric, the eating. I've replaced that with the acting side of things. And it's sort of working quite well. And of course, the inner me wants to go and get my belt out the closet and go and compete. But my clever me won't let me do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that battle ever going to be lost? You're 31, right?
Yeah.
Jesus, I was surprised how young you were. I never say never, or are you moving on?
No, because if I have a B plan, if I have the B plan to maybe come back to strongman and maybe, if the acting doesn't work, I could come back to strongman, then I'm not going to succeed. I haven't got a B plan. I've got an A plan. And my A plan is Hollywood, is to get the TV shows, get the movies. That's my direction. I'm not looking back. Because if I did, you're preparing to fail. And I'm not going to fail.
Tomorrow, you're going to be commentating for Strongman. Some guys are talking about doing some deadlifting tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you think when you hear people say, I'm going to beat your record at 500?
Well, first and foremost, I know what it took. And that's why I don't think any of the guys these days are capable of it, because I know what it took to get me to that place. And when people say they're going to break my deadlift world record, honestly, I just see it as, geez, I just see it as a bit of a joke, really. You know, I don't take it seriously. I don't think I'm naive enough to think nobody else could do it, because that'd be very arrogant of myself, because I did it myself, you know, and everyone said I couldn't do it. So there's no doubt in my mind that it will be broke one day. As hard as that is to say, and it is hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
While you're alive.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough when someone comes and pulls 501 kilo, breaks my world record. It's going to be a hard day for me. It really is. But it's got to happen. You know, it's got to happen. But I will say one thing. Do you know who ran a 4-minute mile second? Do you know who the second man on the moon was? You might do, but what I'm saying is nobody really gives a shit. You know, I was the first man to lift half a ton. It was the most momentous lift in strongman history. And I don't think, I broke the world record by 8%. If someone were to come and add 1 kilo on, it doesn't have the same gravitas for me, and I don't think it does for anybody else either. It could stand for 1 year, it could stand for 1,000,000 years. But I don't think, you know, anyone will ever achieve what I did in the game of strongman, as I raised the bar, literally raised the bar for the strongman game. And that's what I'm most proud of.
Say I'm writing the obituary of Eddie Hall one day, hopefully a long time in the future, and I write down your obituary. I got a paragraph or two about Eddie. What am I saying about this guy? Say he lives to be 100 years old. What has he done? What do you want to be remembered for?
So I guess the legacy I want to leave behind is a man that, with the power of belief, achieved amazing things and proved to millions and millions of people that no matter where you come from, what you do, hard work and dedication can get you places in life. And I think that is the best thing I can leave behind is that legacy. And, you know, even now, with what I've achieved, I know when my kids grow up, they have got that inspiration. You know, I've proved to my children that hard work and dedication, no matter what's happened to you in the past, hard work and dedication can get you somewhere in life. And I think that's the best legacy I'd like to leave behind above anything else. You know, I could say I want to be known as the family man, the love man, the people's champion, whatever. But that's the legacy I want to be left behind. Power to the people.
Okay. How's your relationship with your kids now?
A lot better. A lot better. Still not as much as I'd like to be. You know, as I say, in the last 6 months, I've been in America a lot. But when I've been back, I've actually been spending time with my kids. You know, I've took them out on day trips. I take them out for meals. I've spent birthdays with them. It's not as much as I want it to be, but it's a lot better. And the same with the wife as well. You know, I think all wives grumble. I think if they're not grumbling, there's something wrong.
I agree.
Yeah. But you know, I'm happy. You know, I'm really happy with my family life right now. You know, I've got a gorgeous wife at home who I love dearly. An amazingly clever daughter who I'm super proud of. It was, you know, just a real sort of big personality. I know she's going to do some great things when she grows up. And then my son, you know, he's 6 years old. He's got a condition called dyspraxia. He's very, very energetic. Got like a stupid amount of energy, always bouncing off the walls. But I'll say one thing: he's so good with people, and I don't care. You know, he could not know what 1 + 1 is, but I know he'll always be all right because he's so good with people. You know, he high fives everybody, he shakes the hand, he says please and thank yous, and that for me is just the best thing ever. You know, seeing a little me grow up, and you know, obviously he's got me as guidance. And I hope he doesn't have any of the problems that I've had when I was a kid. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing both my kids sort of grow up to be these amazing young people.
Yeah. What scares you?
What scares me? Good question. I think what scares me is being normal. Is being the guy that goes to work every day, and I've been this guy that gets up at 6 a.m., goes to work, works 10 hours, comes home and then sits on his arse and watches TV. That scares me, because that is not a life to me. That is being a sheep. That's following the rest of the people, and I can't be that person. I can't be that number. I remember getting up for work every day, every morning, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I hated my boss. I hated the place I worked in. I hated my colleagues. I hated the job. I hated being tired. I hated the money. It's just horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I think the day I quit my job, it was like winning the world's strongest man. It was like, I'm free. It's such a good feeling when I never forget when I quit my job and sold my door business, and I woke up on the Monday morning when I made that decision, and I set my alarm at 7 a.m. to get up, and I woke up and I'm just like, oh, this is it now. I'm working for myself. I'm no longer working for a multi-million-pound business. I'm getting up and working for myself, and that was the best feeling in the world. And that I don't. That's what scares me. Going back to that. I can't go back to that.
So you won't, which means you'll work hard
Yes.
at never making that happen.
Exactly.
Right. What would we be surprised to learn about Eddie Hall? Something about you that we'd be like, I wouldn't have expected that from you.
Oh, geez. I mean, I could give you a million answers, but I decriminate myself so much. Geez. What surprises you about myself?
Or some weird guilty pleasure you have. Or you like flower arranging or something. I don't
No,
know.
man. I'm a pretty simple guy, and I'm very open about my lifestyle. I think that's what draws me to people is I'm a normal guy, and I say what I think. I do what I want. There's no secrets with me, really. I've got no little fantasies. If I've got a fantasy, I'll go and live it out,
You say do what you want. I mean, there's a lot of conversations today, back to what I was saying earlier about masculinity, and you're in this industry, or you were, or you still are, that is it's kind of the back to the caveman days, right?
Yeah.
And everybody they have to watch the TV, right? They have to watch The Strongest Man. So
Yeah.
deep down inside, carnally, we still recognize the alpha. And yet intellectually these days, it seems to be going to where we can't, or that's bad behavior. What do you make of all this? And how do you raise your son in this kind of
The
environment?
politically correct.
Correct.
I think the generation is gone a bit nuts. Literally, you can't say what you think anymore. It can get you into trouble, and I've experienced it a few times. And I mean, only the other day, I had a policeman knocking on my door, who came in. I was laughing and giggling about it, and he said, "We've had a report from the NSPCC, so child protection, that you were seen in a services grabbing your son by the arm and dragging him across the car park in a very violent manner." And he I said, I let him finish. So I let him say what I said. Right, okay, so why the fuck have you come here wasting my time talking about this crap? I said, I know the incident you're on about. And obviously, it was the middle of services, middle of a motorway. And we were at McDonald's, me and my son were, ordering. It was before 10:30, so it was breakfast only. And my son said he wanted chicken nugget Happy Meal. And of course, they don't serve chicken nugget Happy Meals before 10:30 in the morning. So he started kicking, screaming, "I want chicken nuggets." And he ran off from me. And he ran off across the car park, and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to run over us. Oh, fucking hell. So I caught up with him. Remember, I'm 26 stone, running after a 6-year-old kid, and I gripped him by the arm and took him back to the counter, and we ordered food. And that was it. But this person seemed to deem it that, and I said, stop being a little twit. Just whispered it to him. But apparently whoever was observing heard that and reported me for grabbing his arm and calling him a little twit. And apparently that is not okay. But me and the policeman had a good laugh about it. Max came down, he high-fived the policeman, And he's like, look, man, he's like, I can see your son's happy as Larry. I've got nothing to worry about here. I'll see you later. I've done my report. And that's politically correct. You're not allowed to touch your children. You're not allowed to say things. You're not allowed to call your son a twit.
So this is the new world you're just going to have to live in, but you're not happy about it.
I'm not bothered by it.
Do you think it'll hurt us though in the long run, because everyone's kind of always worried about what to say? And
yeah, I'm worried about what to say. I'm very careful about what I say in public now. I've got to be really you've got to watch what you do and what you say, how you talk to people. You can't pat a woman on the back anymore because you've touched a bra strap. You can't. It really has gone politically correct. The world has. Where I come from, banter is a very rife thing. You can call each other every name under the sun. You can light fireworks and put it down as arse crack in the garage and the mechanic. You can set each other on fire. You can kick the chair out from under his legs, and you play pranks. You call each other all the names, and that is Stoke-on-Trent. And I'm in a bigger picture now, and this is what I'm learning: is I can't do and say what I want anymore. I've got to be careful, really careful.
Do you think one day strongman will be banned because it's too aggressive?
It could well be. It could well be. It could be that, we are discriminating against the women for not letting them take
smaller
part.
People.
Or small, discriminating against small people. You never know. Yeah, it could well get to that point. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
What keeps you awake at night?
I suppose I think the only thing that keeps me awake at night these days is worrying about impressing people, and this is going forward in life. I'm always going into these big meetings, meeting these big film directors. And, if I've got an audition one day, that'll keep me up, because I'm going to walk into that audition and I've got to impress. And I find that is a very thing that keeps me up at night.
In a good way?
In a good way.
Okay.
Like an overthinking. I'm one of these guys. And if I've got I've got some big business projects that I've got going on at the minute, and I've got some big meetings coming up. One with Arnold himself, and stuff like that gets me worried. You only get one chance at these sort of things, and I'm a risk taker. I'll attack life. I've got no B plan, but obviously I do worry about the A plan, and I think everyone does. You can't help it.
And that's what keeps you awake.
That's what keeps you awake at night. Yeah.
Eddie, I always ask people a few questions at the end. I'm going to ask you if you could pick up the phone right now and call up the 20-year-old Eddie and give that young man some advice, what would you tell him?
Jeez.
So you had just had your first strongman at 19, right?
Yeah.
So you had made the declaration that you were going to win it one day, I think.
I mean, other than the boring stuff of what I know about training and what I do differently in sort of recovery and training wise.
Which you could probably write a few books about.
Oh, geez, yeah. I don't know. I think from 20 years onwards, I think I've done okay. I think if I could call a 20-year-old Eddie all up, I'd just say, hey, man, just to let you know, everything's going to be okay. Be yourself.
On that same note, best advice you ever received? Could have been training or parents or your nan or someone.
A man once gave me the best piece of advice I've ever heard, and it was when I was a young lad, going through multiple girlfriends and getting in sticky situations. And he said, never put your dick where you wouldn't put your tongue. And I think that is the best piece of advice you could give to any young kid in this generation. It'll save you a hell of a lot of trouble.
Oh my God. All right, look out. The social media police is going to come for you now, Eddie. I love it. Please continue to be this guy the rest of your career, no matter what. Please.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll help a lot. Final part is to that 20-year-old that's watching us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Advice to them as they go and live their life. What can they learn from you? What can you tell them?
The following success secrets are only available inside the London Real tribe.
where you get exclusive access and insights from our high-performance guests on wealth creation, productivity, leadership, morning routines, health, and well-being. To join our tribe community, go to londonreal.tv/tribe. Now, let's continue with the show. Another final question for you. You are the world's strongest man, right? One of the most alpha men in the world.
Once you've won it, you're always it. It's like a heavyweight world boxing champion.
You know, and at the same time, you are willing to sit here and get emotional and show all that to everybody. And if you weren't willing to do that, you wouldn't have come and sat here in that chair.
Yeah.
A lot of people, those two things don't make sense. You know, one's alpha behavior, one's, way down the beta gamma delta chain, but not for you.
Yeah.
Can you just say something about that? Because you're willing to be that guy, but you're also willing to show us your emotions and who you were in the past.
Well, I think it was the alpha male that stopped me opening up when I was a kid. It's that image of being the hard man, being the alpha, being the guy, being the successful guy, being the guy that's, rich and, got a nice missus and gorgeous children and whatever else. All these things pan out. And I suppose you've got to release sometimes, and I'd like to release in situations where it can help others. You'll never catch me in a room alone crying. You'll never catch me doing that. You might catch me sat thinking dark, horrible thoughts and getting upset and dwelling on things and feeling bad. But you'll never catch me in a room alone crying. And for whatever reason, I always open up to people and cameras. And I feel as though it's like my way of stopping others going through my experiences. Or if they are going through my experiences, it's helping them. It's helping them pull through and realize that even the strongest man on the planet, the alpha, has gone through mental health. I've tried to kill myself. I have anxiety attacks. I still have anxiety attacks now and again now. And you wouldn't think it, would you? A big guy like myself, I could be at home and I'll be like, oh, I'm having a brain tumor, or, I've got a lump in my throat, or, it's anxiety, it happens. And I think it's breaking that persona that no one gives a shit how hard you are or how successful you are. No one gives a shit. So just be yourself, just open up.
It's true, man. No one gives a shit.
No one gives a shit.
All of us guys were always thinking, oh, we got to be this, we got to be that. No one gives a shit.
I used to have a real problem with self-image when I was a kid, and a real bad arrogance about me. I'd always have to be that hard man. And I always have to prove it as well. I'd put myself in situations sometimes that were very, very dangerous. I'd pick fights with 20 or 30 people in one go. And I'd usually come out smelling of roses as well. And then I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And it's just you want it. And I had all these problems going on in my head, in these dark rooms and in the back of my mind. But it's almost as if I had to prove I didn't have those problems, that I was this superstar, this guy that could knock anybody out and be this hard man and have the money, the cars and whatever else. And now I just don't care. I've got past that point of giving a shit what people think. You've just got to crack on with your own life, get on with it. What good does playing the hard man get you, or showing off your money or whatever else? It doesn't get you anywhere.
Is your Nan still with you? Do you think about her a lot?
Yeah, I do. I feel as though I put that segment of my life behind me.
Yeah.
It was a very, in a way, when she had the cancer, that was a very bad time for me, when she was dying. I was always thinking on her. I was always going to go and see her. And then when she did die, it was almost as if I could push that bit of life behind me. But then I filled it with this challenge of becoming the world's strongest man. And obviously she was with me all that way. But now I feel as though I've achieved that and won the world's strongest man. It feels as though I can put that behind me as well. And, You know, of course I think about my nan a lot, going in life. Of course I do, but I don't dwell on it. You know, it's sort of like sunk in that it had to. It does happen. It had to happen. And I think winning the World's Strongest Man helped me to release that and helped me to sort of let go.
Yeah. Eddie, I think a lot of people will be surprised of who you are, you know? And it's weird, as humans, we see an image of someone and we judge them, right?
Yeah.
We see a big lump like you, we see you breaking records, and we just assume that that's all you are. But there's a lot more going on in here. And the other thing we assume is that somehow it's easy for people. Oh, you must get this all the time, you know, where people, oh yeah, they just lucky, he's just big, he's just this. But it's like the dedication required to be the best at anything in the world. It's always extreme. And I meet a lot of people in that chair and they all worked for it.
Yes.
There's no overnight successes and there's no luck when it comes to that scale.
I mean, I've got, my manager's got a great saying, you know, my manager came over to the UK when he was 8 years old from Pakistan, and he had nothing but an onion bhaji in his back pocket. And the guy is worth about 130 million, roughly, you know, up towards it right now. And I remember talking to him one day, you know, talking about his successes, you know, and how he got to where he is and all that. And I don't know why I said it, but I said, you're a lucky bastard, you know. And he almost took offense to it. And he's sort of taken back and he's like, I'll make my own luck. And that's when it hit me that he wasn't handed those millions of pounds. He went out and earned it, you know. He came to the country with nothing and he worked his way up. He sold ice creams, he sold life insurance, and then he bought businesses and then he made them successful. He just kept building and building and building. He earned that. Nothing was given to him because, and I know that for a fact because he came with nothing. So, yeah, you can never judge a book by its cover. You see a millionaire and you assume it's been handed to him, but no, everything's earned in life.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
Make your own luck.
Yeah. Looking forward to the movies that are coming out. Next documentary, History Channel. It's exciting.
Yep.
Eddie Eats America. And all the other things you're going to do. Terminator 4, 5, and 7. Stranger Things, right?
Never know yet.
Yeah, but Eddie, I really appreciate everything you do. I appreciate you coming on here and being honest and being open emotionally. That's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need to see this. The youth need to see it, the guys and the girls, and it's a big deal, man. So thank you so much. You're a fucking legend.
Thank you. So are you, buddy.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
Cool, my pleasure.
Thank you.